Hey everybody, we're gonna get started here in just a second. Cool. In a few seconds. In the meantime, I'm gonna finish my popcorn. Oh, it sounds so nice with that nice hypercardioid microphone. Horrible. I'm not much for this microwave stuff, but you gotta have something to eat before a symposium and a show. You gotta do it. Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Let's see here. Let's turn down the Wunder music here. And stop it. Awesome. Cool. Today we're going to be doing some ADR. It's going to be super dope. You know, popcorn is really awesome. And one of the hard things about doing popcorn on camera is think about, well, you don't have to think about it, you're hearing it because I'm on this Ceremonic TM7 right now. Just while I do this, just listen to the amount of noise this process requires. I mean, there's a lot of noise. You had to recreate that in Foley. Man, that's a big deal. That's why when we see like a scene where they're like, oh, they're eating popcorn out of a bag. Oh, no problem. And in post audio, we're like, oh, what? Couldn't you just put it in a bowl or something? Because in a bowl, it's so much easier. But I was just thinking about that. Popcorn, man. That's right. This is so easy to do in real life. But in post, man, you're like, oh, really? Man, did you have to do that? Is it so important to the story that they had to have popcorn and have it out of a bag? Really? All right. Oh. An unpopped kernel. Sorry about that. Hey. So, ADR. What does ADR stand for? Automatic Dialogue Replacement. And hopefully you've had a chance to watch this chapter because we go into ADR cutting. We do the actual ADR recording where we show you, all that kind of stuff. We actually do that in the record volume and a little bit in the mix volume. And I think we do it here somewhat. But we definitely do ADR editing, which is, it's not 60% of it. It's maybe 30, 40% of it, of getting ADR right. Obviously, in the world of syncing the ADR that you've recorded with the reference so that the lips move at the same time on the screen, that's important, maybe the most important part of that. But it's not really the most important thing to get ADR sounding and feeling right. That really happens in the mix process and in the edit, the editing of dialogue process, which is supposed to, the later editing of dialogue process, where we're matching ADR. We're going to be doing that, I think, in a couple weeks, where we're doing actual matching EQ. We're going to take some ADR. We're going to match it to what happened before on set and what happens after, so it blends. And that's a very, very difficult thing to do, and we give you lots and lots of examples about that in the education. We're going to do some of that here, but not today. Today, it's going to be about editing, syncing, and then we're going to do a little recording today, too, which is super cool. So, hey, Jody, what's up? Cool. So, with that said, there's a couple things I want to remind you, tell you, get you excited about. A, for those of you who have been through the whole education, which is probably not that many of you, but just enough, the certification, if you want that certification on your resume, on the website, certified member, that's going to be, it's now available in all 4 forms, including the package deal. So that's there. Let's see, Foley Library pre-sales are now closed. So those of you who have pre-saled it, you're going to get all that audio as individual files. No one else in the world is going to get it. I know, Jody, you did it here. You got in under the wire. Good for you. and if you the others. I don't know if Max, if you did. But anyway, so that's good, but sad, but good. The programmers, you know, how they do this. It's all kind of new to me. What we do is we do the recordings, which have taken almost a year, and then we do the editing, which is still going on here towards the end, where we take the recordings that we made and then process them, denoise them, EQ them, do all this stuff, and then cut each little thing that could possibly make a noise into an individual audio file, crossfade in, crossfade out, or do whatever we need to do. And especially, it's especially difficult with the footsteps, because in the footsteps you have a full step series of keys where you can go ka-ka, then you have a heel, ka, then you have a toe, ka, then you have all the various stops, so that, you know, the foot goes all that kind of stuff. But then I realized when I was trying to perform the heel toe custom, which is what makes the library really powerful, where you can go ga 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 on any sound, I realized that there was no pickup. And a lot of what makes a footstep legit sounding is when you go ka ka, pick up, especially on things like carpet, grass, dirt, gravel, and especially on certain shoes like heeled boots, you know, women's heeled boots. So what the editors are doing is that we get the click, the heel, we get the toe, and then they're going into every toe and then cutting out each one of those. So ka ka. And on flip-flops, obviously, it's louder to do the pickup than it is to do any of these. But so we do all the editing, and while the editing's been going on, we're building the graphic user interface and then coding it and then integrating it into the sample player, which right now it's Contact. And then we're probably, I don't know, a few days away from the scripters, the coders who do the graphic user interface and the coding, interfacing the sounds, the files, with the graphic user interface and basically mating them together and making sure that the coding is going to trigger it all. So that's when the rubber really meets the road, and I think we're only a few days away from that. So at least the beginning trials of it. And when that starts happening, you're going to start seeing a lot of videos from me, because that's, you know, the videos that are out right now are from well, it's the beta, right? It's even a pre-beta. It will be a gamma, a delta, a rho, rhombus. No, anyway, some other Greek letter. So it was very primitive, worked great. I mean, I used it on some projects. Like some of you are using the free beta that's out there. I've had a couple of you go, "Hey, I'm using this. How do I do this?" I'm like, "Oh, try this." But you're going to see the real version show up. You're going to have your doors blown off. It's going to be amazing. So unfortunately, there's no access. You have no access to it anymore until we release. But when we do, then you'll want to jump on it. What else is happening? Oh, we sent an email out earlier this week about the Cinema Sound education actually coming to Cinema Sound, which you're like, well, why isn't it on Cinema Sound? Well, because basically it's an MZed product, that 85-hour thing that we made. It was always going to be on MZed along with Philip, I want to call him Philip Glass, the composer, Philip Bloom, and you know, all those cats, Adam Epstein. We wanted to create a quintessential education that people could have an annual pass every year, like going to Disneyland, to pay and have unlimited access to all that. But, you know, you have to pay every year. And some people don't like that. Some people don't like subscriptions. And some people don't want the whole Cinema Sound education, or even want, you know, Shane Hurlbut. They're like, I don't need that. I'm an audio guy, or I really need help here. So what we're going to have, and that coding is almost complete, is the ability for you to go, listen, I just want, what are we on? We're on volume 2, chapter 3. I just want editing chapter 3, because that's got the ADR cutting stuff. That's all I need. And for a really, really cheap price, you're going to be able to either rent it for a few days or buy it, and you won't be able to download it, but you can stream it unlimited for the rest of the life of for however long Vimeo or Cinema Sound are alive. You're going to have that access, and no more annual fees for any of it. And then as Cinema Sound members, you're going to have a bulk discount if you want to get the whole thing that way. You know, right now, I think you can buy the Cinema Sound education for $1,000 and download it, which is amazing. First of all, I don't know how long it would take you to download it. I know how long it took me to upload it. But you can download it from MZed, which is super dope. But that's a lot of money, and it's probably going to be half that to be able to have unlimited streaming to the whole thing. And then if you didn't want to have all the MZed stuff, which is, again, a huge, awesome value. I'm not dinging MZed because it's the best value in the world. But if you're like, I just want to have ongoing access to the Cinema Sound education, and that's what I really want, you're going to be able to do that for a really great price. So more on that. I think you can get record and music volumes right now. I think you can get that. But if you're a Cinema Sound member, don't do it, because wait until we can release, because then I'll be able to give you a good discount, which is cool. Cool, yay! All right. Today I don't have a whole lot for us to do except show you and run through ADR and editing, which is going to be awesome, and your hair's going to go like this. But basically in this chapter, if you watched it again, and in fact all these edit chapters are really difficult to get through because editing isn't the most sexy thing to do in even in visual editing. It's like, really? This is super boring. And in audio, it's probably even more boring, but so important. So all these chapters are like, Ross Hamill, our current certified member, he was like, I finally got through it. It was so hard, but it was so incredibly useful. And we talk about magic attack with sound effects and editing and all that other stuff, which is going to make your brain go like this if you haven't watched it yet. But this chapter, I think you're going to love it. But if you've got questions, and I mean like any kind of questions, don't ask me about your fiance, I don't know. But any kind of questions about, anything that we've covered in record, you want to talk about mix, it's probably going to take us, 20, 25 minutes to get through this. And then I just want to have a nice open show for any of you who have questions or anything like that. Also, what I realized is that we can make this a lot more interactive, this show. And if you've got, and I want to extend this to all of you. How many do I have on right now? There's only a few of you right now. But if you have a piece of media that you need help with, that you're like, man, I don't know what to do with this. What do you recommend? Upload that clip to YouTube or any old place, and then say, Mark, can you help me with this? And just put it here in the chat and put the link. And then I'll just scroll over my browser. We'll all watch it together. And then I'll be able to help you walk through it. And just put the link in there and go, how about this? What do we do? And, it's not going to be like super perfect sounding, but I'll be able to get it, and everyone will be able to hear it. And that way we can all benefit. And it's one of the things I really want to do is have, this thing really be interactive. And I know I can't bring you all on. It's YouTube Live. I can't even do it on Facebook for sure. But at least in this way, you can put up clips. I can check them out. We can check them out together. I can give you my reactions. I might, depending on how it goes up, I can't do it on Vimeo, but I might be able to on YouTube actually download the clip. We can bring it into Audition, and I can start messing with it, and you can watch it live if we can. The other way you could do it, and maybe this is even more efficient, is if you've got the actual files, like, I've got a movie file, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. The audio files like stems. You've got the audio files that start with the video file. Just upload to, WeTransfer. Don't do Dropbox. I hate Dropbox. But Google Drive, WeTransfer, one of these other things. And then, we're running the timeline, the timer for 15 minutes. Just hop on early. Say, I want to do this. Can you download it? I'll download it. And I'll bring it up in Audition, and you'll get some... but it'll amount to about $150 worth of value, because, we're charging $150 to have a consult with me, which is, I think, a pretty good deal. But in this case, if you're on the show, with me, this is my gift to all y'all. And it's a gift to everybody, because we're here to help. Cool. Anybody else? All right. So let's do this. I'm going to switch us over here to this. Yay. Welcome back to the screen. And the lovely hold music. All right, we're in Adobe Audition, just in case you haven't seen this before. And my marker is here. Cool. And this is this session may seem awfully familiar to you, and that's because we've been using it for now months. It's just so very useful. I've just brought in the stems from the pilot that I directed and produced, Blade of Honor. All right, so here's the video.
Do have unexpected consequences at times.
Cool. Let me turn this up so we can hear it just a little bit better.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Now that actually sounds fine, but we're going to ADR this, and let's say it wasn't fine. Now built into this right now is all of the ambiences, and Jody, remember you were talking about, hey, do you put sound effects and ambiences in the center channel?
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
This is actually a down mix in stereo, so you're getting a little of it. You're hearing the reverb in the room. He's in this cool, Zulu thing, whatever. It's called a hyper-dimensional portal. I've got a little bit of it in there, but again, like I said on the Facebook group, I typically don't. Putting sound effects in the center channel really starts dumbing down the surround feel of it when you got more junk coming out of the middle. However, if you watch the mix volume, that we're always putting very short mono reverb in the center channel for dialogue, and we talked about that I think last week, and we've been talking about it all around here, room tone cutting and all that stuff. But when we get to the mix and maybe even sound effects, we'll be deep diving into, hey, should we or shouldn't we? And because we have the ability to do surround sound in headphones, it'll be painfully obvious if you're on any good headphones why we do or do not put sound effects or not sound effects, but ambiences and those kinds of things in the center channel. Speaking of great headphones, these are my favorite headphones, the EX29s, and you can get them with the complete warranty on Cinema Sound. I'm just Mr. Pitch today. Sorry, everybody. All right, back to what we're doing.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
And by the way, if you're on headphones, this is in the center channel. Let's put it in the surround right.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So cool. Here's the front right.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Surround left. I so love this plug-in.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Especially when the neural links between your fighters and pilots are, shall we say, unpredictable.
It's so awesome. This is a Spatial Audio Designer, which you all get 40% off of. Thanks for being Cinema Sound members. All right. We want to replace this dialogue. We can't fix it. It's unfixable, or we're replacing all the dialogue because we just want to have control over it, and we're willing to sacrifice some of our performance from the actors in order to do that and get control. I was approached by a filmmaker up in northern England last week, and he wanted us. In fact, I was going to bring in the Cinema Sound members to help. Paid, yay. But gave him a budget, which was kind of out of his budget. But he had a bunch of dialogue that needed to be fixed, and he didn't want to. I was like, why don't you just ADR the whole thing? And it was going to be too much money. But we ADR the whole movie because it gives us awesome, amazing control, and we can use these beautiful large diaphragm microphones that we don't have to use shotgun microphones or lavaliers to try to match what was going on set. We don't. We can use whatever sounds great. In fact, what we do is audition the microphone on. We audition a bunch of microphones on an actor until we get the microphone that sounds the best. So it really doesn't matter. So it's so amazing. Sorry, that dog. I've left the door open. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. Nobody go anywhere. Give me a second. Doggy. Crunch. Smash. Thank you, doggy, for reminding me that I left the door open. Okay, so in this case, I want to show you that we're going to ADR. Now, Tim Russ, those of you who know him from Star Trek Voyager, a very good friend of mine, and my voice is nothing like Tim Russ's. In fact, Tim Russ has the most beautiful voice maybe of anyone on the planet. If you've ever met him, he's a prince of a man, and just this voice, even in person, you're like, whoa, dude, God blessed you. But what we're going to do is replace it with my sad excuse for a voice. We're going to do looping, and as you know, Adobe Audition does not allow you to loop record, although we can loop in play, which is what I have down here. That's the loop playback is enabled. I can hit play, and it'll loop.
Do have unexpected consequences at times.
Dink.
Experiments do have...
But I can't do that in record. Not yet. Now, I've been yelling at them for a while to get that fixed. Now, if those of you who have downloaded all the 2019 Adobe products know that RU, their newest Premiere coolness, does allow you to do loop recording in voiceover mode. And I would be demoing that to you today. Except, there's a problem. It requires what I call a Sierra Leone operating system. High Sierra, which I downgraded from because I hated it so much. So, and I'm unwilling to upgrade. So I'm in Sierra for Mac. You Mac folks, you know what I'm talking about. And it will not run. So you have to be running 1013 on a Mac in order for RU to work. I forget what it's called. Russian, something. I forget. Because I can't run it. And I was so excited to demo it to you. And I was like, yeah, no, I can't do that yet. So soon. But in Adobe Audition, unfortunately, nor in Premiere can you loop record. So what I'm going to show you how to do, it's a little bit cumbersome, but this is how we have to do it for those of you who are in Adobe Audition. If you're in Logic or Nuendo or Reason or Pro Tools, you don't have any problem. Loop record all day, no problem. Let's see. Yeah, the dog almost ran away. The dog almost ran away with my lunch. Hey, Jerry. Reg. Welcome. So I got to look over here because my iPad right now is running the Soundcraft. Oh, I got to show you this. Sorry, I'm so scattered. I'm sorry. I'm just so scattered today. There's so many cool things happening. Look at this. Okay. Remember, I think a couple weeks ago I showed you we got our UI, Soundcraft UI 24. Oh, you little thing. Come here. This is my iPad, and right now it's running this whole stream. I'm running it through the UI 24R, and here's me, yay, and I can, you can't see, what am I doing? There, I can mute me, oh no, it's connecting now. There you go, hi, welcome back. And you can mute, yay, or back. These two channels are basically running the playback from Audition and the computer, and then I've got all the playback from the mixer, but it's all like here, and I can go to preamps, and see the preamps all here. I got the mixer settings. I mean, if you delve into this, you're going to have to go buy one. So be warned if you got to go to Guitar Center with a credit card by yourself and they're selling Soundcraft stuff, whatever you do, do not look or experiment with the UI series mixers because you will, had better have room on your credit card because you're going to have to go buy one. They have a 12-channel one that's like $300, a 16-channel one that's $400, the 24 is $1,000. And you're just like, what? It's so awesome. Okay. I can't promise that I'm not going to be less scattered because there's just so many cool things going on. All right. I should have just put that on the big screen. You're all like, I can't see. You're so small. Oh, boy. Heaven forbid if when I ever have a guest on this show. I mean, you're just going to want to watch it just for the stand-up comedy nonsense of it. All right. Here we go. What do I do first? Well, here's the reference. I want to add a track, really simple. So I'm going to go to multi-track, add mono track. We don't need to do stereo. Here it is. We're going to scroll down here. We're just going to call this ADR 1. No problem. And because of how I'm having to stream this to you, I'm going to change the output to the 5.1 bus so that you can hear it. I'm also running it through the Spatial Audio Designer plugin. Don't worry about that. Normally you can just run it to the master and you'll be all right. Once I put this into record, yay, there's me, and because of how I'm routing this, you would also be hearing the playback. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this ADR without the playback, which is not what you want to do. Now, for those of you who have watched the ADR sections, you know that ADR is always the wrong way to do ADR. You want to loop. What does that mean? Looping means that we mute the picture. We don't show the actors the picture. I'm not even going to tell you the reasons why. There are so many. And if any of you have watched the chapter, just post on here what reasons. Like, what's the #1 reason we don't show actors the picture? And we instead show them the waveform. Because especially with a line like this where there's a space in the middle, watching somebody's face, you can't tell when to jump in again, and you have to break it down into small chunks that take hours and hours and hours. I've been able to do an entire feature film of ADR with all the actors in a 7-hour session. That's nuts. Usually that's 5 days. And it's not because I'm so good, it's just because the process works so fast and actors lock into great performances and amazing sync right away. So just imagine this line.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Experiments do have, well, when's the next line going to happen? And you'd have to watch him 10 or 12 times to get it, right? But with this, I can watch this bar go across and hit this line. Watch. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Okay. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. I mean, I'm third time through and I'm hitting it. Now, I know I've done this one before, but you get it. Even some of you are like, oh, I could find that. You know where that space is. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. You would get it. Like by fourth playback, you'd be in the zone, and then all you have to do is get the performance right. And if you could loop record, where you just put this in a record, and every time it goes back, it just makes another take and drops them down. You keep all the takes, you choose the one you want in post, and you've got an amazing sync with the actor, and they don't have to. Well, I won't tell you why. Again, we're not putting their own faces on the screen. So let's do this. So I'm just going to have to do one take at a time, and because this feed is feeding back into this channel because I have to stream it to you, I'm going to mute this. It's a little unusual. Normally we would be hearing him back and not looking at him, but I'm trying to teach, so you'll go with me. I'm going to listen to this one more time. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Here we go. We're going to mute him and go into record. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Okay. Oh, and the reason I didn't record is because I didn't press record. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. I'm a little early. Let's just do that again. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Let's see how I did. If I'm even close.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Oh, that's really close.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Now, I just totally lucked out getting that nailed without having the audio reference. That's like my best performance of all time right there, just eyeballing it. But shows you, I'm really excited about that. Shows you the power of being able to watch the waveform. Imagine doing that without his audio reference looking at the picture. There's no way. No way. Even if you did it 10 times, that you'd be able to get that right. I was able to watch the waveform and nail it within 2 takes. That's nuts. I really hope you get the power of looping. I can't make a better demo than that. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to edit this stuff together. Even though it's very, very close. In fact, it's so close, we know that on a 24p frame, that's 42 milliseconds. That means that if your ADR is within 42 milliseconds of standard deviation, if you will, being off 42 milliseconds one side or the other, you're actually still in sync. And this is probably well within that tolerance. Come on back here, let's see. We're going to play, yes.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I'm well within that. Listen one more time and see where you can see if any of you can tell where the one place is that I'm a little late.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Did you find it? One more time.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I'll turn me up a little bit more, see if it's a little more obvious to you.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Did you hear it? It's experiments do have, and it's the V on the end of have. A lot of actors get the attacks of their words right, and a lot of engineers get that edited right. But what really sells us out as ADR is what happens is the closing consonances. Not the vowels so much, but if you've got arena, well, it doesn't matter where the stops, because you're not going to, you don't see my mouth doesn't move to make that happen. But if I have to say, and even a word like cat, the T, you can fudge it. But a word like yes, ma'am, if you don't get the on the end, it sells you out, and everyone's like, oh, that's ADR. So we have to edit on those words both sides. So this
experiments do
have is another one, because you're front loading those top teeth to the bottom lip, and we're going to see it big and loud. So if we look, let's just see here. So watch his lips. If we go right there, you can see actually he's much later than me. And so I'm actually early. He's actually, isn't it? Yeah, I'm early and he's late. So I'm too early, which is kind of a bummer. It makes it hard. So keeping this in mind, we're going to do two versions of this. I'm going to do a conventional cut. I'm going to just walk you through cutting this conventionally. And fortunately, I won't have a whole lot to do because I nailed that ADR performance. And then we're going to show you something special, something that only Adobe Audition will do. And some of you already know what that is because you've tried it. Any other questions? Yeah, bingo. Crazy me. Lucky me. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off my voice. That's called a breath. We're going to get rid of that. Okay, we're going to blow this up a little bit more here. And, you know, I mean, look how on that is. That is really, I mean, it's experiments. I mean, it's almost dead on to the sample. This one's slightly off, but how far is that? If I do this from one attack to the next, that is 2 milliseconds. Okay, I think we're okay. Let's see what other syllables we might end up with. Difference. Those look good. That syllable's okay. Here I'm late, and he's early, or he's on. I'm late. How far is that? Yeah, same thing. 2 milliseconds. This space here. I'm just doing, normally I just use my earballs to tell you, but from here to here, that attack to there, less than 2 milliseconds. Okay. How about this space to that space there? That's 5 milliseconds. Is that right? Something like that. We're well within 42 milliseconds. We're nowhere close. So, because 42 milliseconds would be, I think, if this is telling me what I want to see. Oh, it might be not. It might be here. Yeah, actually, I'm one decimal away. Sorry. So here, that's 31 milliseconds. There we go. I got to get the thousandths right. Still, I'm well within that. This one here, we might need to fix. That's, yeah. So this is a little bit over. That's about 50 milliseconds. So that is a frame off. To have. And that's no problem. We'll take my line. Obviously, we're never altering the reference. We're altering us. So I'm going to cut. And I'm just going to drag this over a little bit along. And the nice thing is it makes that crossfade for us, which is super cool. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more to make sure that I've got this just right. I'm pretty much dead on with that now. Let's see what it sounds like. Just this bit.
Do have.
Really, really dead on. We'll undo.
Do have.
Hear the difference? We'll redo.
Do have.
It's definitely a frame. So that's cool. We fixed that. And then we're going to heal this by not doing this. A lot of people make this mistake, and what you're really doing by doing that is repeating that frame. And although you probably won't hear it, it's a bad habit to get into because sometimes you get double breaths, or these weird things. And one frame, 42 milliseconds, anybody on the street will hear it and go, whoa, what was that? So instead of moving the incoming over, we want to move this down and update the sync. In fact, we can already see that we have to slide this one over. I mean, look at this. So by updating the sync, we're going to take the outgoing and just extend it so that we don't have to add any more weird delay, especially when we're not done editing over here. Oops, let's not do that, kids. Come on back. I double-clicked on accident. There we go. All right, so here is another one. Yeah, I'm 100 milliseconds off here or so. So that's a definite fixer, but that's easy to fix. We'll just slide everything over for now because we're being very generous with our time while we're just showing you how this works. Normally I would just cut that syllable, but we'll see how it goes here now. That's pretty close. If we undo and slide it back. You can hear that it's definitely delayed. Perfect. And then this one now is going to be early because we've slid all this over, which is a little bit of a drag, but unexpected. Let's see here what we've got. Unexpected. So we're just going to cut. Actually, I'm going to cut this right here. And all I'm doing is cutting. I know you're like, what's he doing? How does he know to do this? I'm just cutting syllables and lining up syllables. And I know you're like, man, this is so tedious. Well, I'm going kind of slow. Normally I would just be doing this very, very quickly, mindlessly moving things, and then we're going to heal this and fix this stuff up in a second. Once we get this stuff lined up, then we just move forward. I mean, normally this line would take probably 2 minutes to fix. But I'm going slow and just lining up syllables. Sometimes not even words. Sometimes it's a syllable. So far we've been doing okay. Okay, and then this one. Again, you can see I'm early. Expected consequence is there. We're going to cut. Slide this over so it's just about there. Let's make sure that's the case. Perfect. And you can see that this is a little bit long, but how far is that long? It's 10 milliseconds. We're well within standard deviation. This is even closer. And now here's this, you can see the bass part of the voice in this syllable. For call, the ah vowel, consequences in his voice and in mine. And then s, this is the sibilant of consequences. That looks like it might be a little off. Yeah, it's about 40, it's a little longer than 40 milliseconds long. So we're going to cut this. And now we're going to be chopping into my actual production of the voice. So the S is going to be slid over. And without a crossfade, you're going to get a bit of like a digital hit. But with the crossfade that Audition automatically puts in by sliding it over.
Consequences.
You don't even notice. Listen.
Consequences.
Don't even notice. It's beautiful. We're going to keep going. That looks beautifully in sync. This looks beautifully in sync. How about this? Again, I'm a little late. But probably not by much. Let's take a listen to this all together. Oh, and this is where we're going to get late. That's really, really close. I'm not going to be concerned. And then this one's clearly off. You can see that attack is 60. Oh, no, it isn't. It's only 18. That's okay. We'll fix it anyway. We're having fun. And I'm going to take that crossfade down because it will right now it's crossfading on the attack, which I don't like that. So we deal with that by going back to where we were and taking the outgoing, solving it here, and bringing the outgoing to the attack so we won't notice it.
The
times. And the S, here's our times. My times is way earlier than his times.
Times.
And that might be a problem, except times, the S is behind the teeth and behind the lips. Times, time. You don't know if I say times or time. You wouldn't know by my lips. So we're probably safe here, but let's cut this and I'll show you what's going to happen, which will be kind of a problem. If we slid this S to fit his, you can already see the problem. And Jody, this is running into our conversation around what do we put in these little bits that have nothing in them.
Times.
Perfect.
This is at times.
Now, if we listen to this all together, we should have a beautifully cut together.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I'm still not getting the V on have after all that.
Do have.
Let me listen to where that V is. I'm not actually seeing it on my...
have.
Oh, it's right here. I guess I am later. Okay. Right there. We're going to cut that. We're going to slide this up. Oh, no, I don't want that crossfade. And while Adobe Audition's great with crossfades in that it does that automatically for you, sometimes it's also a little bit of a pain because it adds them where you don't want and you have to kind of massage in and out points like this. Now let's see.
Do have.
There we go. Okay. All together now.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
That's dead in sync. And like I said, it would take me about 2 minutes, and you, once you get accustomed to this whole process, to cut that line about 2 minutes, and then 2 minutes on the next line, and 2 minutes on the next line. It's a tedious process, but something that we do to make ADR great. Let's solo my edit now, and you're going to hear some problems.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Oh, well, you don't. And the reason you don't is because I have Spatial Audio Designer on. This is a perfect example, Jody, of what I'm talking about. Let me turn Spatial Audio Designer off for a second. Experiments do have. Listen to the difference. This is now just straight mono. You've been listening to it in surround. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. And I'm going to actually mute my microphone because this is adding some self-noise for a second. Check it out. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. And what you're noticing is there's a couple of little places where there's no audio, right? We just cut out hard. And you're like, it's because they're so short. We're talking milliseconds. You don't really notice. But if you had to solo that track, you'd be like, why is there dead time in the middle of this here? And this is one of the reasons, one of many reasons, why we add a slight bit of reverb in the mono center channel. Listen to it once I put Spatial Audio Designer back in. What Spatial Audio Designer is doing is actually creating a room convolution of a theater, as if you're listening to it in a theater in your headphones. And you'll hear this room convolution, this room, very short room, covering over all of the cuts. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. I mean, it's flawless. Let's go back and turn it back off. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. And even with that, those edits are really, really, really short. You don't notice. But with it on, experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. And I would probably turn that reverb down in the real world about half that much. And it's more than enough to cover over all of those little cuts. So I don't have to go, oh man, I got to go add room tone. I got to do all this stuff. No, just add a little reverb. And it's a cheat, I understand, but it actually has your brain feel like it's more natural anyway, because that's how your voice would react in any room. It's not going cut dead it's not going dead cut to room tone either, right? You're in some kind of ambience. You're going to have to add some kind of ambience in the mix anyway. Well, when we get to the mix, or you can even experiment like I'm doing here in the edit to go, does this work? Is it too much? You can do that. Now, if there's a cut that's really, really long, you might want to add reverb or room tone if it's like, half a second or some nonsense like this. But hopefully your ADR that you've recorded is not a half second off. What? Horrible. Now, here's the other thing we're going to do to even help this out even further. And I should have done it earlier. And Jody's already going, and Mac's probably going too. Dude, you didn't denoise it before you did this. What is the matter with you? And you'd be right. So we're going to double click. Here is the actual edit that we double-clicked on, but that's the whole file. We're going to zoom out. And for those of you who haven't seen this in Adobe Audition, it's super dope. Experiments do have... It's going to come out of my speakers for a second because this only comes out of channels 1 and 2, and we're not streaming with that. But here's the noise, right, that we want to get rid of. But you can't hear it. It's coming out of speakers. We're going to go to Effects, Noise Reduction Restoration, remembering that this is destructive. When we hit save, we're going to burn this into the file, but we don't care because we want it to be clean. Typically, I would make a backup of this before I did this, but we want to move forward. Capture Noise Print, that allows Audition to know what noise I want to get rid of and then keep the rest of the dialogue. It's not that noisy in here. We'll maybe make it 10 decibels at a 90%. We're going to select all, apply, and now look at it. Look how nice that looks. You can see over here the file itself, ADR1.002, now has an asterisk, which means that it has not yet been saved to the file. And if I quit it or it crashes, I will lose that denoising until I hit save. And once I hit save, the asterisk goes away and it is permanently burned into that file, which is what I really want. We're going to go back. And now that dead time is further alleviated by the fact that the room noise that was in this recording is now pretty much gone, or 10 decibels less, to the point where that we have dead time in here is irrelevant. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. Especially when we have a room built in. Let's check it out. Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times. You can't even tell, right? So the argument for room tone in ADR editing, where you're doing synchronization, as long as you're not hearing weird clicks and pops because you didn't do crossfades, is moot. It's silly. And in Adobe Audition, you can set it up so that all of your hard outs in the preferences, which we showed you a couple weeks ago, can have a 1 millisecond or less or whatever you want crossfade anyway without you having to do it, which makes this kind of stuff so much easier. Yeah? Super cool. Let me see who's got questions. I'm going to have to rewatch this. Came in late. Jordan, we missed you. I'm currently editing a cut to a short film I was lead on. I almost said led on. You were led? Oh, heavy. I was led on, and hopefully there won't be any ADR needed other than sound effects. Well, yeah, I like that. I like ADR. There's a reason why the big budget films do 100 or 95% ADR, because it just makes the mix so much easier. So much easier. And your dialogue edit budget, or days or time, basically goes from a week or more to a day, because you know you're going to be in ADR and you budget that as its own thing. So, but Jordan, good luck. Good luck to you, sir. And I'm glad you're doing some productions instead of the wedding stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with the wedding stuff, but I'm glad you're branching out. Okay, so what we have here now is a really good, if I do say so myself, cut against the reference. And we know it is because when we listen to it back together, and this is our own, we don't care about looking at the picture. Our brains, our eyeballs can't tell if it's truly in sync by looking at the picture. We want to hear it together, and that will tell us.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
That's really close, and there aren't any artifacts or anything like that. But let's say it took me 2 minutes, which, you know, if I was by myself not having a great time with all y'all, I probably would have. Let me show you something else. And some of you already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to add another track. This is going to be, I'm going to call it ASA. You won't know why until I tell you. We're going to send it to the 5.1 bus so I can stream it to you. I'm going to click on this, Shift, Option, Drag. Oh, Shift, Drag, Option, Drag, Shift. Option, Drag, Shift. That means that it won't move left and right, and I can copy it. And I'm going to just basically do this, which means I have a version now that doesn't have our edits. In fact, let's have a little fun and listen to these together.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
It's still really close because I did a good job of putting it together, but you can hear the flanging, you can hear the little bit of the delay.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Pretty cool, right? So we were already very, very close, and that's nice. But we're going to drag this down too so I can keep this close to the reference and remind ourselves what these sound like together. I'm going to mute this record because we have done our part with it. Thank you so much.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Already very close. But Audition has a thing called automatic speech alignment. What? I know, it's crazy. We were introduced to this on the Sound Advice tour by one of their head programmers. In fact, their head programmer, Charles, who we were in Minnesota in, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. The big city in Minneapolis. Lewis, wow. And we were there, and he was like, you know, and we were showing them this edit process, which is what I just showed you. And he goes, you know, there's an easier way of doing that. And he came, we sat him down, and he showed us what I'm about to show you. To use automatic speech alignment in Audition, you have the reference next to the ADR, in this case. The ADR and the reference need to have the same in and the same out point. So we want to make sure that's the case. And one of the ways we do that, just to make sure, I'm going to make this longer just as an example. We're going to jump to the head of the ADR, which is here. And then I'm going to shift with the time tool. You can see I have the time tool selected. We're going to shift, drag over to the edge. It's snapping of the out of the ADR. Oops, there. From here, I'm going to cut. I'm cutting the reference. I'm going to trim this, and now I know that for sure the in and the out of the reference are identical to the in and the out of the ADR. You can do it either way you want. You can cut the ADR to the reference, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. What does matter, however, is that the ADR has the same amount of syllables. This thing will correct like crazy, even if it's wildly off, which we won't be able to see today because I'm pretty close. But if you don't have the same syllables, if somebody's mumbling something and they don't quite get it right, this is never going to work. You're going to get really weird, skewed results. But we're pretty close. So I'm going to go to the arrow tool. I'm going to drag select both of these. Once I drag select both and I know that the ins and the outs are the same, I right click. Automatic speech alignment. What? For those of you who haven't seen this, your heads are, I understand. Mine did too. We tell it, reference clip is this one, that's what it is here. Indeed. The unaligned clip, the ADR, is this one. It is indeed ADR 1002. And I'm going to just say balanced alignment and stretching. You have three versions. The tightest alignment's the one that's going to give you the most artifacts. This one's going to be a nice balance. And the smoothest stretching is the one that's going to give you the least artifacts, but the least tight sync. So we're going to stick with the middle one. If your reference clip is noisy, like you were on set and there was a bunch of noise going on, which is perhaps the reason why you're ADRing it, you click on this and it has a kind of a different algorithm, and that it kind of goes and attacks where the dialogue should be and ignores a lot of the constant noise that might be going on. However, my suggestion is that you go denoise your reference clip just to make sure, because this is a very complicated process. And then you want to add aligned clip to new track, which is cool. Instead of just adding it over here in the files menu, you got to go hunt for it and drag it over, and it's kind of a drag. Okay, so with this said, we're going to go click, bang. It makes a new track. Let's drag this over here so we can read the names a little bit better. ADR 1002. Here's our ACASA. We're going to mute that. That's the dead track. Here's the one that's aligned. Let's listen to the reference and the newly synced one together, see if they sunk.
Experiments do have.
Oh, I also need to run this to the bus so we can hear it.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
If possible, that is even more in sync than the ridiculously awesome edit that I did. Now let's solo me and see what kind of artifacts we have.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So there's some weird, right?
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
There's some weird stuff in the sibilance, and that's probably because there was some noise happening in here, and we denoised. So, but synchronization-wise,
experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I mean, that looks like me. It looks like all of a sudden poor Tim Russ has my voice, and for which he would be very upset, and I wouldn't blame him. Let's try a different setting. I'm going to undo. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to select all, unmute, select all, right-click, automatic speech alignment. Let's try the smoothest stretching algorithm. We'll go bang. It does it again. We're going to mute this one. Let's make sure the sync works.
Experiments do have.
Yes, I have to resend it to the correct bus.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So there's something funny that happens with times.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
At times. Let's solo and see what happened.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
Yeah, okay, so it got a little funky because that times is there.
Experiments do have unexpected...
And notice that it didn't fix the V on have.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences.
So that's probably a little less successful, although there's a lot less artifacts, except for the fact that it munched the voice. Let's try the tightest alignment and see how we'll do automatic speech alignment. We'll do tightest alignment. These are all correct. We'll go bang and mute. Oh, it's already muted. Okay, good. We're going to put it to the right bus, the correct bus. Let's see what happens here now if I solo and go back.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So there's more artifacts, but it is way more in sync.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So, you know, I didn't have to do anything. That wasn't 2 minutes. That was me just hitting a button or two. And you're like, yeah, but what about all those artifacts? Well, that's true. But if I knew that this thing was dead in sync, which it is when we listen to all these together.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I mean, that is like the same person talking. Then what I know is, look, I don't have to correct this whole thing. And people get hung up on this. Like, well, you know, the speech alignment thing's okay, but it adds a lot of artifacts. Yeah, but look at what it did. It corrected 94% of it, right? So all we really need to fix, I'm going to go to the time tool, is a couple of S's.
Do have.
Let me just double check which ones.
Do have.
The V. So we're going to take that V. Some of you already know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take this V, I'm going to take this whole space, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to drag select up, I'm going to move it over like this. Audition's already making a crossfade for me.
Do have unexpected consequences.
And
do have unexpected consequences at times.
And the S here at the end is really nasty. Times. Notice that it stretched it to match his, which is one of the reasons why it's creating that digital noise. But because the S is being hidden behind teeth, we don't need to worry about it. I'm just going to drop it in here. I'm going to fix this so I get a nice little crossfade.
Times.
Cool. In fact, I might just take all of unexpected, cut that. In fact, I can just do that here because it's all here anyway. Oh, Oh, I'm a little early. All right, I'm going to keep the unexpected and just drag this to a new space like this. I might be causing more trouble and making a liar out of myself, but oh, let's just go like this. Undo. Undo. Here. Now. Because we know the S is in the right place. And we just want to drop unexpected. See that little blue line that shows up? It's actually showing me snapping to transients. How useful is that? Here, I'm going to get a double S, but that'll be okay.
Consequences at times.
Cool.
Expected consequences at times.
And unexpected. Okay, so if we put this all together, what have we done?
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
And it's a little digital here. Fine. So, you know, I'm trying not to be biased in how this kind of went down, but because typically this does a much better job of syncing. And at this point, I would say that my hand-done edit is superior in every way to what our friends in ASA have done. But again, it typically does a little bit better job. I'm just going to drop this in here to see if I can make it slightly more successful.
Unexpected consequences at times.
Yeah, and then that weird flanging bit is because of this crossfade.
Unexpected consequences at times.
Cool. And the rest of it got sunk.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
So that's a nice little blend, right? I got most of it correct with ASA. I had to fix a few more spots than I wanted to fix, but at least I could fix them because I had the regular one just sitting there, drag them in, moving on. That might have taken me, maybe it might have shaved 30 seconds off my edit. And you're like, oh, dude, it's just 30 seconds. Yeah, but if you've got a feature and you got to do this, and there's, I don't know, 500 lines? What's 500 times 30 seconds? 250? 250 minutes, that's 3.5 hours, three hours or so that you just shaved. No, 4 hours or so you shaved off. Well, that's good. That's a lot of beers. So that's supposed to be funny. Let me just reference this now with the other. Excuse me.
Experiments do have unexpected consequences at times.
I mean, it's still dead in sync. We don't miss this space in here because we denoise it. So there, I've shown you 3 different ways to cut ADR. The manual way, which hopefully you got something out of. The ASA only way, which super fast, but you sacrifice a little bit in the artifact department unless you have dead clean dialogue. And some of the sibilants and the consonances aren't too far off. But I'm going to tell you, when you have dialogue that's way off, even if you don't do looping and you're languishing through ADR land, it still does a great job of dropping you into a great reference that you can touch up with the third way, which is a combination of ASA, and manual editing on little chunks that get a little artifacty. So from here, then we would do the whole film, all the ADR, wherever that is, we would just cut it all together. And now we have, an ADR sunk and processed and denoised beautiful set of tracks for all the actors. We either stem them out individually as audio files to whoever's going to do the mix, or if it's staying in Audition or in whatever you cut it in, then it just stays there, and you back everything up, and you take the files that you're not going to use and you drop them to the bottom or wherever your organization goes. And from there, the next time you touch your ADR to do anything is going to be in the mix, and at that point you're doing your blending, you're mixing, matching the ADR with the on-set stuff, and then once matched, contouring all. So once you've matched it, then you contour the on-set natch sound dialogue with and the ADR to the overall sound that you want, and that's something that people miss too. They're like, "Oh, I've got the ADR matched to the on-set sound." You're like, yeah, but did you have enough high frequencies for your overall dialogue in that scene? Enough bass, enough compression, enough? So that's where that routing comes in, where the ADR and the nat sound gets routed to an overall bus that you control. And sometimes, I get this question a lot now. People are freaking out. They're like, man, if I had a track for every actor and every scene, I'm going to have hundreds of tracks of dialogue. Yes, yes you will. That's why, you know, when we cracked open the mix of Iron Man for Avenger Station, there was 950 tracks. And that was per reel. What? So, I mean, it was 50 tracks of dialogue or more per reel. We love tracks, and it's also why we break up our big format projects into reels and then sync them together. So, we love that. We love tracks, and we want to be able to contour all of our tracks per scene, by scene. So sometimes you'll have one set of tracks if you've got a lot of actors and they all have to be contoured, and there's ADR. Run to a single, there's scene 5 bus, and the dialogue bus of scene 5 gets its own EQ, its own compression, and all those tracks go there. Here's scene 6 dialogue tracks, and those go to scene 6. I actually haven't talked about this before because nobody's actually come to me with a 120 channel mix or more. But that's how we would do it if we had a ton of channels and they were just out of control, and we needed that kind of independent control. Then all of those scene dialogue buses would go to the overall dialogue bus naturally, so you can control all the dialogue if you needed to. Let me see what questions I got. The ASA example in the MZed track is a much more pronounced example than the difference here. Yeah. In the, I know. This is just me showing you, hey, watch this. Which is why I'm saying you should watch the MZed Pro education. This is a review of all of that. And if you haven't gone back and watched that, please watch it, right? I spent 2 years of my life making that education as great as I can, and as pronounced, like what Max says, as I can, to give you the education that you need to get that. And, you know, you can review it over and over and over, as long as you're an MZed Pro member. And as I said, soon, Cinema Sound, you'll be able to buy it outright and review it, whether you're an MZed Pro member or not. What else have I got here? Sound Speed. Hey, Sound Speed. I like that handle. Thank you. To paraphrase one of my favorite sayings, watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. Yes. We at Cinema Sound have a different way of saying it. We say, don't commit false economy. False economy means saving money now only to spend more of it later. Yeah. So, any other questions? We are at time. It is 7 o'clock. I can't believe this took as long as it did, but hopefully you got some juice out of it. Just this simple edit. Let me see. What are we doing next week while you're typing away feverishly? This was advanced editing. Then we got more advanced editing. Oh no, then we're dialogue cutting. So the next chapter we dialogue cut Macbeth. We dialogue cut the beach scene, which was unbelievably difficult because of the surf and all the nonsense. We talked about dialogue re-importing, which I could show you that. We can certainly talk about it. Dialogue importing means I don't have a take that I can use in the digital audio workstation that I have. None of that's going to work. I have to go back to the NLE and find a better take. And how do I re-import that in Adobe Audition or Premiere or DaVinci or Final Cut? Please don't cut audio in Final Cut. Let's see, more editing examples. We searched for better takes. Again, we did all this live. I wasn't fooling around. I didn't plan most of that. I was like, oh, I don't have a take that I like. We have to go back and find another one. Better takes, and then stereo dialogue. That's right. And then because in the car, we had multiple mics going on in the car for the dialogue, and they were in stereo, no less. And it's a great example of when you're doing an internet delivery, how you can get away with having stereo recordings of dialogue because you're going to be delivering in stereo only anyway. You're not going to be doing a 5:1 delivery. So how we manage that, and that you're intercutting between microphones, which is not exactly the easiest thing to have to deal with. Let me see. What are we doing the week after that? We do more room tone cutting for Macbeth and action. Last minute ADR, voiceover editing. Oh yeah, for the donuts bit. More stereo, mono compatibility. We definitely need to talk about that. Final tweezing of dialogue, room tone. Boy, all this juicy, juicy stuff. And then magic attacks. You know what we may do? Because so much of this in the education, in the multiple chapters of it, was me showing you what has to be done to get a final dialogue mix, which, although it's difficult to watch, is really, really important. And we set up some of those shoots to be specifically difficult, just to demonstrate here's a bad situation and how we make it great. I may combine maybe the last 3 of these chapters so that next week might be our last edit volume show here. Because I know a lot of you want to jump into fix, and I could probably subdivide those chapters into multiple weeks so that you can get those some of the value that's going on there in both Adobe Audition and in Isotope RX. And some of you have now upgraded to RX-7, which is super cool. It's also one of my favorite cars. So that's cool. I don't have it. So you'll be suffering with me in RX-6, which is still unbelievable. And when I did the education, I only had RX-5, which I thought was unbelievable. But now with Dialogue Isolate and all the machine learning that they have in there, it's just so cool. All right, cool. I'm going to go full here. Hey, it's me, Big. Let me see if anybody has any other questions. Cutting the short film as you talked, I can see spots I'm going to need to make some magic happen. Yeah, what's great about short films is that A, they're short, B, they're films. Is that you can really spend some quality time experimenting, because sometimes the delivery schedules are not massive and intense and crazy, and you can go, hey, let me practice some of the things that I'm learning here. And that's what Cinema Sound is all about, that we don't just go, oh, that's nice, anyway, I'm going to go back to what I did before. We want to learn and experiment, and there's no better way to experiment than on the projects. It's sort of being what I classify as on-the-job learning, paid education. So a short film is an excellent way to tap into all the techniques that I've been teaching, including basic grade of dialogue, contour of dialogue, ADR matching, even how to do looping. I'm telling you, when people come in and they want to do ADR and the director's there, and I'm going at the velocity that I go at, and I know some of you go at when you do looping versus ADR, and there's no streamers and there's no picture except the director sees it, they're like, wait, how are we done? I'm like, yeah, we're done. Didn't you approve all those takes? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess so. I said, are we missing any? Are we missing any? No, I guess we're not. I'm like, okay, great. Listen, I'll see you next week. I'll have all this cut together. And they're like, wow. It changes everything. It puts you on the map as an employable person, even if it's your own film. Even if you're the producer and the director, where you can walk in and anybody who's sitting over your shoulder going, including the actors, right, who are doing this looping with you, they're like, we're done? I'm like, yeah, you just did the whole feature in an hour and a half. What? We did, when I directed Mind Sifter, we had the gentleman who plays Spock, Brandon Stacy. He was in L.A., he lives in New Orleans, and there was a bunch of ADR to be done. And I did it, at the time I was living in a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment. I didn't have a studio, I had nothing. And we were in my dead quiet closet. And he was there for about 90 minutes. And we pretty much ADR'd every line he had. And this is a dude who's on television all the time. And he budgeted 3 or 4 hours. And I'm like, we're done at 90 minutes, let's go up here. And he couldn't believe it. He's like, wait, what? I'm like, that's it, we just did it. And I'll leave you with this. Never underestimate the power of ensuring that your actors are never bored. And rewinding and dealing with streamers and all other stuff is the surest way to have actors lose their vibe, lose their flow, lose their energy. And most actors, if you can keep driving them, they end up using that emotional stress that sometimes they feel like we keep moving, next line, and they can end up using that, which is, the best in the world, to recreate that performance. And nobody's posted here yet why we don't show pictures. The biggest reason why we don't show picture to actors. But go back and watch the education in this chapter and you'll remember why. This is a freebie to do just that. Get that experience. Yeah, it's the perfect thing, Jordan. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, kids, it's 7:07 here on the Pacific front of the battle. It's been awesome. I think next week we're going to do a little mishmash and, bring your questions. Jordan, what I was saying earlier is that I want to turn this into a little bit more interactive. So if you're working on that short film, or Jody or Max or any of you, and you've got a clip or something that you're like, what do you think of this? Or how do we fix this? Look, just either post the overall on YouTube and put a link here in the, whichever way it is, in the chat. And then I'll download it and we'll just I'll show it and we'll talk about it and I'll fix it if I can download it. Or if it's something where you can upload to WeTransfer or something, stems and whatever else I need, the video, if you have it, obviously, I'll bring it into Audition and we'll work with it and I'll work with you online and everybody will benefit. Obviously, don't violate your NDAs, but I think it'd be an excellent opportunity for me just to work directly with all of you, and we can do it here on the show. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to get through this education. You know, I'm having a good time. I hope all of you are. And you know, if I can help you directly, and you've been kind enough to be on the show with me, many of you since the beginning, I'm happy to not have to charge you the $149 consulting hour fee. You can just do it here on the show, and everybody would win. So, you know, the countdown starts 15 minutes before. Show up 15 minutes early, put the link in there, and we'll download it and hopefully get it set up, and that'll be really, really exciting. So, I offer that, extend that to all of you who've been on the show. Cool. All right, I'm going to stick around for a little bit while I break things down, but thank you, everybody, and it's always a pleasure. Have a great week, and until then, we'll see you in post. As a big helicopter goes by. Hello. Thank you, Jordan. Oh, hey, by the way, if any of you are in Atlanta, not my Atlanta, November 2nd through the 6th, I will be there going to Sphinx Con, but also I'm going to be doing some interviews and recording there. If you want to connect, I'll be there. I'd love to see you. And I'm going to be bringing some shotgun microphones, maybe some lavaliers, and if you want to get your hands on those, come join me and help out on some of the things we're doing. Love to have you just drop me a line. That'd be great. Thanks. You're welcome, Jerry. Thank you. And you too, Jody. Nothing like cold popcorn. It's not so bad. And that's all there is to that. Great Foley. No, there was no bag Foley in the library, sorry. Let's see, how about master? How do you get to the master one? Oh, there it is. 31 band EQ. Can't actually see. No. So awesome. I love this thing. I'm telling you, don't go to Guitar Center if they sell one of these with a credit card by yourself. Oh, that's how you do it. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you next week.